What if the promotion, the raise, or the six-figure business you're chasing isn't actually success? And what if that big failure that you're avoiding so hard from happening is the very thing that sets you free? Hey, friend. Welcome back to Align for Wealth, the podcast that helps ambitious professionals and busy leaders balancing work, family, and big goals build wealth without the burnout. I'm your host, Taydonna Nagel, wealth alignment coach, financial educator, and founder of Legendary Wealth Builders. And in today's episode, we're going to unpack why some wins leave you feeling empty and how failure can actually be the best teacher. Also, how to create your own definition of success that blends peace, purpose, and prosperity. Because here's the real twist. What if the true definition of success isn't about how much you earn, how many titles you collect, how many letters you have at the end of your name, but it's about how closely your life lines up with what you value most? And what if choosing success based on your values is exactly what unlocks not just peace and purpose, but lasting financial well-being? And this is exactly what we're going to dive into today, because so many of us, we have a very similar image of what success looks like to us. And this is really given to us based on society, based on our upbringing, based on our family. Most of us are all giving this same map, this same design of what success should be. We go to school, we get a degree in a career that's going to pay us a lot of money. We get the career, we get a lot of money, we get promotions, we get the corner office, we get all the things, right? And sure, it's not that that is incorrect, but it is incomplete if we think that is the definition of success. Because at the end of the day, we're not all the same people. We don't have all the same desires. We don't have all the same strengths. We don't have all the same talents. And we definitely don't have all the same purpose. So if all of us is following this roadmap of what success ought to be, then that's really flawed for many of us. So for myself, I followed the same roadmap. I went to school, I got a degree in financial economics. I got the great job working in investment bankings at top Fortune 100 companies. I got the promotions, I got the titles, I got the perks and the benefits. But it looked successful on the outside. It looked successful to family members, to friends. Friends probably got to brag, oh, my friend, she's so smart. She's in finance. She's good with numbers. She works at XYZ company. Sure, it looks good. It sounds good. But was it really success? I don't believe that success can really be measured by external validation. It's all about being internally aligned and fulfilled. And that's part of the reason why what I teach my students and my financial enrichment curriculum and our mastery pillar, which is all about self-mastery, a big component of it is really understanding who you are, what do you desire, what are you good at, what drives you, what impact do you want to make in the world? Because I think so many of us skip that part and go straight to financial, money. How much money do I want to make? And we completely skip over the impact that we want to make, our value system, what's aligned to us, what do we want to see in the world. And that's such a huge component on us feeling in alignment and fulfilled and hence successful. And it's so important that we identify what our values are. And values essentially is your core beliefs. They're your guiding principles of why you make the decisions that you make, right? Look at your values as essentially your North Star. They're really guiding all of your decision making. They're the why behind what you do and how you live. And there's so many examples of core values. There's freedom, there's family, there's integrity, authenticity, there's loyalty, creativity, adventure, community, flexibility, loyalty, peace, respect, right? Obviously, I cannot just spill out every single value there is because there's so many. And I definitely encourage you to Google, right? Look up just the different values there are because they're so important in determining our level of fulfillment. So, some of my personal top values is freedom. Incredibly big on freedom, right? I teach financial education. So, part of what I'm teaching is financial freedom. Financial freedom is a part of what I teach, but freedom in terms of a core value is just incredibly important to me. Also, flexibility is important to me. Independence is important to me. Authenticity is important to me, right? Being myself, showing up as my true authentic self. Also, adventure, travel, family. These are things that are my personal core values and what's important to me. So it's definitely really important for you to identify and reflect on what your core values are. And I would suggest doing an audit, right? Really looking at your life and see, does your life reflect what you say your core values are? Because at the end of the day, what you're spending the most time on, what you're spending the most money on, is going to be a huge indicator of what you value. So if you're looking at, okay, I spend a lot of money on dining out, or I spend a lot of money on clothes, or I spend a lot of money on alcohol, or I spend a lot of money on travel, or I spend a lot of money on my family, those are going to help identify what some of your main core values probably are. Also, like I said, where you spend a lot of your time. Do you spend a lot of your time at work? I know many people do, right? Especially if you work in corporate. Do you spend a lot of time with your friends? Do you spend a lot of time with your family, your loved ones? Those are going to be a lot of times what your core values are. And if you're doing an audit of yourself, of your life, of your energy, of your finances, you're going to be able to realize, okay, well, according to how I'm spending my time, according to how I'm spending my resources, this is showing what I really value. Because sometimes there could be a disconnect. There can be a disconnect in what we say we value and what our life is reflecting that we actually value. Because I hear a ton of people who may say, well, I value my family. But they don't spend a lot of time with their family. They're mostly at work, or they're mostly involved with other things. But then they say they value family. It's not to say that they don't value family, but their life is not reflecting in their actions that they value family. So they may feel as if, okay, well, I'm going to work. The reason I'm going to work is because of my family. I need to take care of my family, which is not incorrect, but we would be going to work even if we didn't have a family, right? I was working in corporate America before I even had children. So yes, I continue to work because I have a family to provide for, but I'm going to provide for myself as well, even if I didn't have a family. So I would really encourage you to audit your time, audit your resources, and take a outside looking in approach and say, if I was someone from the outside looking at how I spend my time, looking at how I spend my resources, what would I say that this person top values or priorities are if you were outside looking in? Because like I said, where you spend most of your time and your money is going to reveal what your actual values are. And sometimes where a lot of us get tripped up and where the discomfort comes in, because what our values are and how we're living is misaligned. And that's when the discomfort starts discomforting, right? That's when the success doesn't feel very successful because many of our goals were inherited. Many of them were given to us, passed down to us from society, from family, from friends, from well meaning parents, from teachers, from counselors. And they weren't always something that we would have selected for ourselves based on our own strengths, our own talents, our own desires. And although people may be well meaning and had good intentions, it doesn't always mean that that was the thing that we desired. So when your daily life is going against your values and your desires, you will eventually feel stuck. You'll feel trapped. You'll feel restless. What other people are seeing on the outside will not reflect what you feel on the inside. And like I mentioned in another episode, I know this all too well. I've checked the boxes of the things that I was supposed to do, the things that I should do, but I also did not feel fulfilled in the inside because I was misaligned in some categories. So the real issue isn't that you need to go back to school to get another degree, that you need to work harder, that you need to take another vacation. Sometimes the real issue is that you're misaligned and you really need to get back in alignment with what's really important to you and what your true values are. But a lot of times it's really difficult for us to get into alignment because many of us are afraid of failure and we're afraid of starting over because we've already put this much work, this much time, this much energy, this much resources into a thing. We got to make it work. We're not about to turn back now. We're not about to throw in the towel. We're not about to say this was a failure because failing can feel embarrassing, right? Sometimes we don't want to fail in front of other people because it feels embarrassing for other people to know that we made a mistake or this didn't work out. But I would like to reframe how we may be perceiving failure because a lot of times we perceive failure as something really bad. But I think we need to reframe failure as feedback. Failure isn't finite. Failure doesn't mean that you are a failure. Failure just means that you missed a mark. And it gives us feedback. It says, you didn't make the goal in this situation. So how can you do something differently to get a better outcome in a different scenario? And if we could look at failure as feedback and say, okay, how can I look at this and see what lesson this has taught me? And then take the lesson and go back and tweak and do something differently, I think it would be less of a tough pill to swallow. Because, like I said, failure isn't finite. Failure isn't an F in life. Failure is just feedback. And just as in your favorite movies and your favorite TV shows, they did not create that whole movie and that whole episode in one take, in one shot. There were mistakes. There were mishaps. There was bloopers. No one completed the film, the episode, the shooting in one take. Cut. We're done. First day on the scene, on the set, we finish everything. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. There were bloopers. There were missteps. There were mishaps. And there are some instances, I don't know if you've ever seen TV shows where they go behind the scene and they actually show the bloopers. And it's so funny. It's so comical sometimes to see, but it just normalizes and humanizes that we as people, we make mistakes. So don't be afraid of failing. You're failing forward. You're getting more practice, more evidence, more feedback. And then you go back and you tweak and you do something different. So there's a quote that I've heard since so many years back that a setback is a setup for a comeback. And just look at those little minor failures as essentially a setup for a comeback, for you to come back as a better, greater, smarter, wiser version of yourself. Don't look at it as, oh, I messed up, I should just throw in the towel. You are absolutely not throwing in the towel. You're going to get back out there. You're going to get in the rink and you're going to do it even better than the first time. So don't look at failure as a bad thing. It's just feedback. It's just a challenge. And I know how difficult it can be to fail publicly. I know how difficult it could be to pivot when other people are looking at you, when other people have expectations about you. But I also know how wonderful it is to walk in alignment, to walk in purpose, to walk in fulfillment, and how doing that really opens up the floodgates of opportunities to you. And a way that you might be able to tell that you're not walking in your full self is because you may not feel authentic to who you really are. So, for example, when I was working in corporate America, I felt like I had to show up a certain way. Not that many people of color in my company, in my department, in my team. I kind of felt like I had to fit in. And fitting in and trying to fit in may be an indication that you're not in the right place. If you feel that you have to leave your authentic self at home, that you have to water yourself down, that you have to walk on eggshells, that you have to essentially code switch, right? That you cannot show up as your authentic self, that may be an indication that you're not in the right space. Now, what I'm not saying is that you shouldn't show up and be professional, right? There's a such thing as read the room, right? I do believe in that. You may not walk into a professional scene the same way that you walk into a scene with your homegirls, right? You may not walk into every scene the same way, every environment the same way, but you should definitely still be bringing your authentic self. You may not always bring your transparent self, right? That means all of you hanging out, but you should bring the real you. So if you're in environments where you feel like you cannot show up as your authentic true self, that may mean that you're not in the right environment. And me being an entrepreneur now, I absolutely now have the freedom and the flexibility to show up as my authentic self. Am I going to still be professional? Of course, I'm going to still be professional. But I get to talk and be and show up how I naturally would show up in real life with my friends, with my family. And I encourage you to think about, are there places in your life where you're hiding parts of yourself just to be accepted, just to fit in? Because there may be an area where you need to dive deeper in to say, why can't I show up as my full self in this place? Is this place really meant for me? Am I really aligned in this environment? Because being aligned for wealth is more than about extra commas in your bank account. I want you to have all that, right? I definitely want you to have the extra zeros, the extra commas in your bank account. Absolutely. But I also want you to be in alignment with your values and your goals and your purpose. I want you to be able to budget your time, your energy for all those things that you want to do that's in alignment. And if you're someone who values travel, who values adventure like I do, I want you to be able to create a life and a budget that allows you to be able to do all those things that you desire to do. All right, friends, it's that time for your aligned move of the week, which is a simple, powerful action you could take to bring your money, mindset, and life into deeper alignment. Because listening is great, hearing is good, But change doesn't come until you actually do something. So alignment happens when you move. So I need you to move and not only listen, but actually take action. So I want you to write down your top 3 to 5 core values. Now, there are a lot of values out there, and this is an exercise that I typically do with my students and that I do in my vision casting workshop at the beginning of the year. But I want you to Google values and really read through them and determine at least 3 to 5 values that are your core, your top, that this is definitely your North Star, what's guiding your life, the most important things to you. And I want you to audit where your time and money is going. Like I said, if a stranger was to look at how you spent your time, was to look at how you spent your money, was to look at your calendar, was to look at your bank statements, what would that stranger say that you value? And if there is a gap between what you say you value and how you spend your time and money, then I want you to close the gap. The step 3 would be identify what you can do, what you can shift, what steps you can take to shrink that gap and to bring things back into alignment for you. Because I do not want you to be living and chasing someone else's version of success. I want you to create your own version of success and align yourself for wealth. So thank you so much, friend, for tuning into Align for Wealth. And if something in today's conversation spoke to you, I'd love for you to take a moment to subscribe, leave a review, or share this episode with a friend who needs to hear this as well. And if you're ready to go deeper and align your money with your values and your purpose and create the life that you truly desire, then come connect with me on Instagram at legendary_wealthbuilders.com. Or connect with me on my website, www.legendarywealthbuilders.com. I love to support you in your journey. Remember, you don't have to chase success. You can attract it by living in alignment. So until next time, stay aligned and stay wealthy.